Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we preach a lot about marketing on the show.
Yeah.
Talk about stuff like, where to start, some best practices.
We're marketers. So
we are, yeah.
It would make sense that we talk a lot about marketing.
We like talking about marketing because we do a lot of marketing.
Yes.
But again, I feel like we've done a lot of stuff about kind of like base level of like, how do you start marketing? Where do you begin? What do you do?
The basics, the fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't talk enough maybe about the folks that are already out there doing it.
Oh.
Because hopefully everybody, if you've been listening to this pod, you're marketing on a regular basis.
Oh, I gotcha.
But maybe you need to get a little bit more out of it.
So we're upping our level today. We're going like 200 levels course or 300 level course.
It's not graduate studies quite yet.
Okay, got it.
But maybe taking things a little step further than, yes, I know how to send out emails. And
I like it.
Market on Facebook.
I like it.
I got a little web page and a Facebook profile. And if that's all you got, you need to go back and start some of those other episodes. But
absolutely.
We're going to go a little further than that. And maybe, what you can get more out of your marketing now.
Nice.
So we've got a great guest with us again. We've got Tolgar Alpagut from IPCMobile.
Yep.
He's going to talk to us a little bit about this. He's an expert in all things marketing. He actually asked to come on the show.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen too often. Usually we're out there begging people to come on.
Right.
He apparently likes the show and watches it.
Because he's got good stuff to say. He's like, no. I got to straighten out your audience.
That's probably it. He's probably like, these guys, I know I can set some folks straight. These guys are mucking it up. I'll come in here and set the record straight.
There it is.
So we're going to talk about some stuff like buying journeys, attribution mirage, which is one of those terms like I knew the concept, but I didn't have that term yet.
No, I am so stealing that one. Yeah.
You should. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally
100% I am.
We're going to use that term. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing with minimal resources. But also, like, come on, you need more than just the bare minimum here.
Yeah.
We're going to get into LinkedIn a little bit as a popular platform and what he thinks about
because
that.
We're B2B, right? So,
exactly. We're going to talk about some of the newer marketing tools that people are talking about, things like AI, some of the social stuff, automation, and get his feelings on those and whether they're useful or not.
All right.
And we'll wrap it up with some takeaways of maybe some stuff that our VARs can go out and actually do with their business.
I like it. I like it. Everybody could use this one, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Come on now.
All that plus our usual, as I said, value to the VAR, what's TEConnecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today, Tolgar Alpagut. I think I said it wrong in the intro, even though I already asked you about how to say it, but I'm going to get it right this time.
Yep.
He is the VP of Marketing for IPCMobile. Tolgar, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate having you on. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into marketing. I'm always fascinated by the path people take to marketing because I feel like nobody goes to school and says, I want to be a marketer. And yet a lot of us end up there somehow. So let's hear your story.
I think that's actually a brilliant way to position it. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I've been in the marketing space for about 19 plus years and technology for 21 plus. And so really that's kind of the fusion of where the collaboration started. Initially, I was actually working in the entertainment and movie space, film space. And from there transitioned into technology. Somewhere around the 1998 to 2000 mark, when Y2K was prominent, I was programming in COBOL and slowly got my feet wet actually into marketing at that point. And began to transition into the technology space, manufacturing and industrial automation, most recently working with professional engineering services, as well as VARs for companies like GE and SAP, working end-to-end supply chain. So we're talking from farm to fork, all the way from raw goods, all the way to the end. Genealogy, track and trace, all of the things that what we call industrial Internet of Things brings. And in that space, all of these previous skill sets that I had, whether it be customer service, whether it be my time working at McDonald's, whether it be working in the manufacturing space, have all translated as a culmination of understanding how people react and act and their behavior of how they intently pursue something, right? And that's really the concept for me, is understanding the psychology of it. And so marketing became more of a people watching experiment rather than sort of an objective of just trying to define purely a sales objective, which is kind of where the alignment tends to fall. So why I love it is I recall when I was a freshman in college, a lot of folks that had an initial study or a focus would transition to psychology the next year. Whatever they were majoring on didn't pan out and went to psychology. And it was sort of a kind of culmination of understanding. Similarly with marketing, regardless of where you are, there's a lot of inherent things that you've done in your past that can all translate to the marketing space because of that people connection.
True. Although I'm going to challenge you on one of them. Cobalt programming to marketing? I mean, dude, you have to be in like the 1 percentile there.
Yeah, no, there's not usually a straight line. With that.
No.
That's a pretty jagged line, I think, at best. But.
I'll take you on the programming side, though. That's good stuff.
I had a journey where I was pursuing MCSE.
All right.
So I did want to become Microsoft certified. I had A++ certification, and then Cobalt was,
All right.
Well, the programming comes in handy, right?
It does, yeah.
Knowing some HTML or translating that over into that world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all good.
I appreciate, though, that, because you're right. I think those of us that are in the marketing world, we're people that kind of get people in some way, understand how people work. Yeah. The psychology aspect, as you mentioned, you have to understand a little bit about that because you have to understand about what motivates people to do things. Because that's what marketing is all about. You're trying to make somebody do something that they otherwise maybe weren't planning on doing,
or perceive it a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that,
So I like that. I like that idea that your life experience can lead you there. Which again, I think is why a lot of folks don't plan on starting with marketing.
No, right?
But they get there because their life experience kind of teaches them a lot of the stuff that makes sense to be a marketer.
That's true.
I dig it.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that point, just, it's an oversimplification, but I think we've all heard everyone is a marketer at some point. And if you are a marketer, you may object to that statement, but really it's about your influence on family and friends, right? It's about relationship building. It's about credibility. It's about trust. It's about providing entertainment, education, information. So if you're doing that at a personal level, that can translate to what you do in a professional level if you understand kind of that core psychology of it.
For sure.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, no, we work in a company where everybody thinks they are a marketer, for sure. Hey, I got a great idea. Have you ever thought about doing...
Well, it doesn't help that our marketing department is made up of so many types of jobs that do a little bit of hodgepodge
no
of
doubt,
everything.
dude.
So,
yeah. 75 opinions
roaming
around the office.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Okay, well, so let's get into this conversation about getting a little bit more out of your marketing. Because again, I think, I want to talk to some of the folks who at least are doing something baseline. Ideally are out there, at least maybe they have some kind of an email program. Maybe they have a social presence. Maybe they've got some kind of a website. Everybody typically has some kind of website. But maybe your site's maybe even a little beyond the basic, and you're out there doing stuff, but maybe you're trying to figure out like, hey, what else can I do? What more can I do with it? So, I know a lot of big part of what we talk about in marketing and, part of the understanding of marketing is customers' buying journeys. If you understand your customer, how they get from I need something to I've bought something and now I'm implementing it, it's important to know that. And what led them to, obviously, to your company, your product, is getting more challenging than ever now. We know that's a big problem on the net, is figuring out, okay, how did someone find me and my company? How do they figure out the right way to get to me? And if once I know that, then maybe I know where I'm supposed to be devoting my efforts. But that's getting harder than ever. I know one example, for instance, is Apple updated, their at iOS some point years ago, where like attribution for email, if you're using the Apple email app or whatever, is not as easy as it was before. You can't as easily identify or maybe not even get that information at all that someone opened up their email if they're using Apple and they have some certain privacy security settings. That's just one example. So I wanted you to talk to us about this concept that I mentioned at the front, attribution mirage. This was one of those concepts I knew about, but again, had not really heard that term yet, and I love that term.
I do too.
Useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about that and how it's contributing to this problem of figuring out exactly how someone reaches us before they decide to buy or interact with us.
Sure. Yeah. So just before I begin, I'll give credit to the attribution mirage being coined by Chris Walker of Refine Labs. And that term really is, to your point, understanding how people come to your website or your forms or whatever you're looking as your intent signals. And the challenge there being is that traditionally, if a person has met with someone, got a good referral, maybe does some research, and then ultimately uses Google to come to your page, it's going to be attributed to that Google search, right? So you're going to miss all of the other intermediary layers of what got that person to that point before they went to the next step. And one of the quickest things, from a qualitative perspective that we've even employed, and I'm sure you've seen this, is just adding a "how did you hear about us" comment section in your forms, right? When people come to the website. So first of all, if you're already gating your forms, that may be adding some additional friction. But secondarily, it's adding that simple question of how did you hear about us to better understand where that referral channel is sourced. for us in particular, and I always kind of allude to the old days of going to the doctor's office. The receptionist had a little sign that said, "Please refer us." It was always top of mind. It was always there, right? That's the objective. Your objective is to create an experience so good with your services and or product or your organization that they want to refer you. And a happy customer is going to evangelize you to 5 to 10 people statistically. So in that respect, it's really about trying to understand, to your point, the customer journey and knowing that it's not linear anymore. When COVID came about, a lot of the executive folks and middle management had their own channels of referral that they'd sit with peer-to-peer advisory groups and have some sort of direct communication. A lot of that went away in person. So they had to find digital channels that they use, whether it be Slack or some other back end. And understanding where those conversations take place, understanding where that peer advisory is taking place is key. And how do you get there? You need to sit with your customers. You need to actually take the time. I think that's one of the things that's kind of the lowest hanging fruit that maybe not everyone is executing on, is just getting closer to their existing customers, really understanding what brought them to the table, what were some of the key channels that they used in their journey to get to you, and seeing the commonalities. Is there a trend among all your customers that there's one channel that's popping up more than another that I could invest in? Secondarily, I think the key thing is that you want to be able to do things consistently. So it's not a boil the ocean scenario. So for attribution, you can get much more targeted in 2 to 3 specific channels to drive those activities and measure. And that to your point is another thing, is measurement, right? I don't necessarily think that everyone is measuring everything. And if they are, it may not be the correct channels that they're looking into.
I think our world, I think you've teed up quite a few things I'd like to unpack a little bit here. But yes, our world as marketers is so much more complicated. Okay, let's rewind the clock like 40 years. And attribution maybe was a little bit easier. Oh, right. We ran this ad in that newspaper.
And X people showed up.
Right, or sales went up. And that's the only ad we did anywhere, So you can do some direct attribution. Right. Today, it's almost impossible. And I love this attribution mirage concept, because now to further complicate it, when you're talking to an accountant in your company or somebody like that wants direct attribution, we spent $100. What is my ROI on that? Right? It's becoming more and more difficult for marketers to do that because of this attribution mirage. You can't attribute. How did people find out? I mean, I thought that the article that we'll obviously have in the notes here does a really good job of kind of painting the picture about it's more of a journey that somebody might come in contact with who you are, your brand, and then the journey to actually engaging with you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole idea around attribution mirage is difficult. I think your tips there were really good. It's not a linear process that people go through, right, in their journey to become your customer. And so knowing that is part of the battle. So a couple things here real quick, Tolgar. You kind of went into the whole customer persona and looking at trends. Let's dive a little bit deeper on that. I mean, we spend some time doing that as well. You're advocating that if a company is not doing that today, not kind of just even on a basic level, drawing up what the customer persona is, they should hit the pause button and do that, right? What do they look like? What are the titles we're going after? What are the tools they're using? How can we engage them? What are possible channels to engage them? Is that what you're advocating?
Absolutely. And I don't want to jump ahead to the LinkedIn portion of the program, but again, if I could just state that there are tools inherently available for folks to be able to draw up some of these conclusions. But traditionally speaking, 10, 20 years ago, if I were to give my salesperson a phone number and the person's name, that was sufficient, right? But now we know that we can get a lot more information from firmographics, psychographics, but we also see these folks talking on social channels, interacting with other organizations on their company pages, talking about their personal life. I recall sales folks that worked with clients and said, hey, after 6 months, I know this customer's kids got a baseball game this weekend. It was that affinity that they drew. Well, a lot of that information is already publicly available, right? So there are a lot of opportunities if you mind even, and I just brought up LinkedIn because that essentially is the world's largest CRM, right? It's a large database, but on top of that database is actual activity happening with those folks. So you're building sort of that superficial layer of behavior as well as guidance around the psychographics portion. So I would say for any organization, take a moment, hit a pause button, first understand who we are as an organization. What do we have the capability to do with our existing resources? How much do we want to budget towards marketing? Is it a 6 to 10% recommended piece of the revenue? Or is it, are we, as Chris Walker, I believe in his last statistic was 2% is what most organizations are putting for budget right now. So, and then from there, understanding processes and as you target and execute on the process, minimize the amount of processes and minimize the amount of intermediary technologies and tactics to execute that process. There's an overcomplication of everything that's happening right now, and we need to simplify that, right? And I had a former CEO who used to always say you have to be a plate spinner. You got to get one plate spinning before you can hop onto the next plate, right? Otherwise, they're all going to shatter. So in that respect, yes, you need to do the kind of the basics of targeting and understanding, but secondarily, it's the process. And the third is measurement. That's the other area that's not really happening is the measurement in real time to better understanding how people are interacting. Oftentimes, the information comes after the sale or sometime later down in the cycle. And so you need to be able to capture everything as it happens because maybe you're not getting from stage 3 to stage 4. So what's happening in stage 1 and 2?
I want to dive deeper on the analytics side. Did you have anything to add on the whole dark social or the attribution mirage?
There was a couple of things here on some of these articles, and again, we'll put these in the show notes. This one in particular, I felt like really kind of highlighted to me an explanation of how the whole dark social aspect works, which was it notes like an example. You post something on LinkedIn, someone sees it, forwards it to someone else in the company. They're like, "Hey, this is great." So they read an article or on the blog. They send that link to their boss. That boss then listens to a couple episodes of a podcast, tells their ops manager, "Hey, we should think about hiring these folks." That person goes to Google, searches your company, and then sets up a call to talk to somebody. So if that's the path happening, you think when you see like, hey, this person came to me because they searched me organically.
Oh, this is where I was going to go.
Google.
Yeah, these analytics are frustrating. They're wrong.
In reality, LinkedIn is where this all started. LinkedIn was the first contact point, but you see that someone came to you via Google. So you're thinking, all right, I got to dump more money into SEO onto Google.
So for clarity,
in reality, you probably needed to put a little more into LinkedIn. But how are you supposed to know that?
How are you supposed to know that? For clarity, the article does a really good job of showing you. So we're talking about Google Analytics, and in the analyzing that you're doing, you look at your statistics and say, oh, look at all these people that are coming to our site directly, right? They attribute it as direct source. Well, when you dive into it, that is kind of a little bit of BS in the sense that 100. I'm going to throw the numbers out. I hope you don't mind. 100% of all visits from TikTok, Slack, Discord, Mastodon, and WhatsApp are marked as direct. So if you get a customer that comes to you through Slack, which is not inconceivable, I can see a Slack conversation happening inside an organization. You should check these guys out. Well, that's going to show as in your analytics as though somebody typed in your URL directly, which is false, right? Just to keep going, 75% of visitors from Facebook Messenger or 30%. I think it's let me get it right. It's 30% in Instagram. 14% of LinkedIn is shown as direct. So you may have done some organic or non-organic effort on LinkedIn, and it doesn't matter because 14% of it's going to show up as a direct way to your website. So that was fascinating and mind-blowing.
And what I saw here too was, okay, when you think about like TikTok, maybe not as much TikTok because I know a lot of folks are doing direct marketing on TikTok and you can have a marketing apparatus there. But think about stuff like Slack, Discord, Mastodon, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. All of those are places where people are typically using to communicate with one another.
That's right.
It's not necessarily a place where they expect to go and have businesses,
That's right.
advertising to them. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's not what people are going there for. They're going there to share and speak and communicate and build a community with one another.
That's right.
So that's happening. That means most of the time that someone's getting a link to go somewhere that's going to get marked as direct, it's because someone else is actually sending it to them. And where did that person start from? And that's the information that no one's getting. So I guess that's kind of the question here, Tolgar, is like, what do we do with that? Like what happens when you're getting this 100%,
or you're basing your
attribution.
analytics on stuff that is by significant
you're
percentage
putting your
wrong.
spend. You're thinking, all right, we gotta dump 20 grand more into SEO this month, or we gotta put all this more money into LinkedIn because we think that's where stuff happened or whatever, or we gotta make sure our website looks that much even better because everyone's just literally just going to our website. We need to send more flyers out or something. What do you do when in reality that's not happening?
Yeah, I mean that's a challenge, right? And there's a lot of account-based marketing platforms out there that also kind of render the same results. So you've invested even in a platform and you're still getting the same results. There isn't really a silver bullet necessarily scenario that resolves all of this. As we've said before, one of the easiest things that you can do right away is on any of your contact forms or any of your sales forms, you can add, how did you hear about us? We've done that about 6 months ago. It's
Same
a game
here.
changer for us.
Yep.
Yeah. In terms of being able we recently had a lead come through YouTube. Would have never known directly, and that was just such a unique experience. I think that's the first thing. Secondarily is just talking to your existing customers. Again, trying to understand where they're currently hanging out, because you can get closer to some of those communities and be a part of the community at a thought leadership basis, right? You can contribute. We call it the cocktail party approach, which is you kind of just come in there, you hang out, you answer questions. You're not really pitching yourself. It's really just about understanding the conversation, the tone. Just like any social platform, they all have their own tone. They have a different community. So you really kind of have to understand that dynamic. You really need to live and breathe that. So if you can identify 1 to 2 of those from your customers, I would say that's a great area to invest your time to better understand.
I think the last thing I'll add there too is if you are listening and you're not a marketing person, maybe you're sales only, or you're just a leader in your company, executive or an owner or whatever. If you're someone who does look at your marketing department and kind of question from time to time, what are you actually doing? And can you prove that what you're doing is useful?
They're questioning that all the time.
You're spending X amount of money on this. Can you show me where it got us something? Maybe listen to this and understand, like, they might not be able to directly show you that, but it doesn't mean that it's not working, and it doesn't mean that it's not beneficial that they're doing that. Because there just may not be a perfect absolute way for them to draw that straight line between we did X here and this person bought here. I mean,
but you still have to explain it, right?
You do.
You do at a high level have to explain this mirage,
right,
of attribution, because everybody wants to stick, dollars spent to attribution.
Right,
so we know that there's a cloud. We just have to let everybody else understand what the cloud looks like.
Exactly. Just direct them to this podcast. If someone's questioning, just send them to this podcast. Say, hey, just listen to this podcast. You'll understand why I can't exactly tell you, but that most likely what we're doing is working here.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into this conversation about marketing with minimal staff, minimal resources. It's a popular talking point. It's something people ask us about a lot. It's something we've talked about on the show a lot. But at the same time, and you've talked about this. I know James Cordy talks about this quite a bit too. That you have to have some kind of a baseline. You can't be looking for the minimal bottom way to do marketing, because you got to do something. You got to put a little bit of spend behind it. You got a little put of oomph behind it. You got to put a little bit of staffing behind it. So, what do you think VARs and ISVs should be doing with their marketing, at least at a minimum? And are there any specific tips that you do have when it comes to the idea of do more with less?
I can certainly answer, to do more with less right away, but let me just go back to the tips on the VAR. Our team right now is a team of 3. So it's myself, I've got a content writer, we have a web developer, and my graphic designer. And one of the things that we've done a couple of weeks ago is we've converted ourselves to our generative AI team, right? So each one of us is learning a different tool in our scope of work to better understand how we can deliver more. And the challenge with that, and you hear AI all the time, is that it can be mind-numbing, right? There's just so many options out there. So again, let's put that aside for now, and let's just talk about some of the simple things you can do. What are you doing today? What is your existing process? Do you even have a process? I mean, the fundamental understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, the actual strategy and the planning, I think are areas where when I speak to folks are kind of missing. It's a very tactical approach. It's should I be emailing? Should I be on social? The answer is yes to all, right? I mean, there really isn't a one or the other. I treat marketing the same way I treat diet and exercise. I've tried a lot of diets. I've tried a lot of exercises, but I found the one that works for me in this current state of place that I'm in and what I'm doing in the time that I have allotted, right? But what could have worked for me 10 years ago would have been completely different. I may get the same results. My physique may look the same. I may be just as healthy, but I did a completely different approach. So for that reason, it's very difficult to just kind of ingrain you should do this or that. It really is an honest conversation with yourself of what you're trying to accomplish, and maybe even getting a conversation with a customer to better understand where you can take that marketing by understanding the information. But data is inherently the key. Is how are you collecting the data? Is it the right type of data? Is it giving you the insights that you need to make decisions that are actionable in a quick? And that's the beauty of the market that we live in. A lot of these things are real time. So if you want to take the time to look at it granularly, you can catch some of these things quicker instead of waiting later on. And I think that's one of the key things that a lot of folks could look into is what are some things that we can mitigate early up front that can help intentionally shorten the sales cycle and also increase conversion.
I like where you're going there, and I'm gonna throw in. I'm gonna steal from Cordy because he's done a couple presentations.
Steal from the best.
Yeah. I'm gonna steal from the best, absolutely, on some of his thoughts. And I agree with him, but I'm gonna approach it from a different angle based on some of this information. You know, one way to think about it, because you're right, Tolgar. I think a lot of business owners probably sit down and say, "Well, are we doing emails? Are we doing blogs? Are we doing it's like tactical stuff." But when you think about the skill sets that you should have in your marketing team, depending on how big of a team that you can have, assuming that most organizations, it's going to be a 1 to 3 person, 1 to 4 maybe team, right? And in fact, Jeff Bezos, not to quote Jeff Bezos, but when he's talking about, software development or teams in general, once the team gets beyond the size that you can feed them with 2 pizzas, it's too big of a team, right? So if you can feed your team with 2 pizzas, you're good to go. It's a lot of creativity is going to come out of that. But anyway, let's think about the skill sets. You probably what do you want to internalize if you ideally could? Here's the list that I think that I'm extrapolating. Copywriting. You want somebody who knows your business and can come up with your voice that's got to be unique in the marketplace, whether that manifests itself in emails, blog posts, whatever, social media, which by the way is the second one, social media management. I don't know that you want that outsourced, right? You probably want somebody internally that can do that. Email marketing, of course. Performance and analytics. That's right where you're going there at the end, Tolgar. You want to be able to look at your stuff and quantify it to what you think you're trying to achieve. And then obviously project management and maybe SEO were the ones that I'm kind of calling out here. So, you think about the skill sets, and I think you already hit the nail on the head with the team that you have in place, right? You probably need somebody who can do copywriting. Cordy refers to it as the small army. It's a designer, a writer, and a techie, right? Those are 3 kind of different people, right?
You could have some combination.
You could have some combination in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find a designer that doesn't mind doing a little coding, or you could get a Tolgar who can freaking do Cobalt for you. It's kind of a thing. But writers are definitely sometimes not the techie. So anyway, you can find a combination of that. But you see where this is going, and then you can kind of build off of that. If you have the opportunity to get a little bit bigger, maybe you're adding in video production, right? Because video is becoming so prevalent, and getting that right, even though it can look raw, is kind of important type of a thing. So
but that's one of those things too. I'll just step aside real quick. Like we've talked about this before too, where everybody these days carries around a pretty sophisticated camera in their pockets. So if it's okay that if you don't have a videographer who's not a motion picture quality videographer on your staff, you can probably do a lot with video just based on what you have out of your pocket.
That's right.
And with some editing tools.
That's exactly.
So it's one of those things where like, hey, maybe you don't need that immediately, but to your point, if you get to that point where you can grow and expand, definitely bring something like 100%. That on because it's going to help you out.
And that's where I was going with the second part is what would you freelance then? Well, some things that you should freelance freelance would be consider video editing. Like you can shoot your own stuff, but maybe, Fiverr, there's things out there that you could maybe develop a relationship with somebody who can do your video editing, give it a little bit of pizzazz kind of a thing. Anything that's around web programming, HTML or CSS or something like that. I mean, these are things that probably aren't done a lot. So if you had to outsource it, you could.
And aren't necessarily very specific to your company.
Correct.
Or industry.
That's a really good point, right? So it's kind of this mixture of leveraging external resources, whether they're freelance or third-party companies. But what is that core that you want around you? I think it's people who understand your business, understand what you're trying to do, can extrapolate the data and quantify it that's relevant to you. These are some basic blocks, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, I feel like sometimes we'll get some questions too, like especially when you're marketing, you'll get some questions from folks like, hey, what are some free or low-cost tools that I can use for marketing and design and emails and just managing the program or whatever? I'm like, sure, those are out there and you can use them. But then I kind of think about spinning that back, like especially let's say if you're a VAR. And how do you feel if someone comes to you and says, hey, what's the cheapest or like free point of sale system?
We've all been there. Anybody in sales has been there.
Yeah, exactly. I want a point of
solution's
sale.
Great, but do you have a cheaper one?
Right. I can go online over here and I just put in free point of sale. And there's all these places I can go and get that. Like, shouldn't I just do that? Yeah. If you hear that and go, ugh, and that makes you cringe or makes you angry, that's how we as marketers feel. When you ask us like, hey, how can I do what you do, but basically
no cost.
Free or no cost, or with just like the one guy over here that I hired that I just want to do it all.
Right.
You can't. I mean, you can do something, but it's not going to be as good. It's not going to be high quality, and it's going to probably look like everyone else who's trying to do it on the cheap as well.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where there's just like a lot of other parts of your business, you need to do a little bit of investment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Tolgar, do you guys use freelancers? What are your thoughts on that, or third parties to augment your staff from time to time?
We have in the past, especially when it comes to things like motion graphics, or if we're going to be doing some, longer editing. We recently actually turned 2 of our unused conference rooms into a post-production studio.
Nice.
And so now we're doing some of that in-house. If you can't do that, there's certainly a lot of, viable options, to your point, through Fiverr, through Upwork even, where you can get some things quickly done. There's even AI tools that can cut up your podcast. Like, to John's point, the more you can be involved, the better the work product is going to be. But there are some things that you can do on the quick, because I was reading a quote recently, but it said, like, in the game of life, there aren't winners and losers. There's only players and quitters, right? So you just got to keep playing and just keep it. The polish will come. I think a lot of people inherently worry about the polish up front without really understanding the substantive messaging first. And so in the game of, memorability and relevancy and speed in there somewhere, it really does need to come out with the relevancy first. So how good is your message? Do you have an elevator pitch? Can you really, in the 15 seconds you have with me, tell me what you do or give me some value? 30 seconds. Can you truncate that message? Because you can add all the polish you want, but that will get lost. And they've done studies where, if you don't have a great camera, but your audio is great and they can understand what you're saying, it's still incredibly effective. It's when it reverses, where the audio is not so great and the video is
not good.
Yeah.
Right. So not good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wheels fall off. Yep.
So I think sometimes, it's the Instagram effect where you see someone who's living the best life ever and you're like, I want that. But to get there's a lot of things that you need to do. And that was really a constructed view that they gave you behind the scenes.
The good one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Behind the scenes is an absolute chaos. And so I think we have to have realistic expectations. I think that's the key thing first, is just slow it down. It can be overwhelming because, especially with the blow up of AI, there's just so many companies offering so many things. And you're like, I don't even want to get into this. I'm so lost. So simplify, figure out who you are. If your organization was a person, how would that person talk? How would they interact with people? Would they consistently pitch your product? Probably not. If that person, your organization, had a party, let's say your social channel's the party and you're inviting people there, and they come into your house and they see trophies of yours and every guest is talking about you, you know what I mean? And suddenly you start seeing that, hey, this is not really working, right? So it's about the value you're bringing. You're bringing people to you and the attraction. And that's the other thing that I would just say that's inherently different now, is that you can either fish or you can farm, right? And you can attract. And the challenge with fishing is you're in that 1% of TAM. You're trying to find exactly. And to your point, the attribution model may say it was this bait that worked, but no, it was the temperature of the water. It was the sunlight. It was the current. There's all these other conditions that you miss out on.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to dive a little bit into the tech stack, but you got something.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, when we go back to the idea of the, a freelancer using somebody to help out, I will say also, if you do find somebody that does good freelance work for you,
hold on to them.
Treat them well, hold on to them, pay them well, because that's very invaluable. And we don't do it too often, but we have a freelance artist that we use for graphic design for a lot of our ebooks. She is absolutely outstanding. She produces great work. She does it fast. And we've worked with her long enough that basically I can send her just like, hey, here's copy for an ebook. Very bare minimum of maybe any direction on design that I might give her. And 3 days later, she's turning over a pristine, amazing looking ebook to me. Because she's learned
and there's value there, right?
She's learned our model. She's learned and understands what works and what doesn't for us and what we expect. And it's one of those things like I know every time that I hand something to her, I'm going to get something high quality back. That's the kind of person like, all right, I don't want to just go out and just hand it out to whatever freelancer is going to give me the lowest ball offer to do that work for me. I'm sticking with her because one, now she understands who I am, what I do, and what I want. And I know that I'm going to get consistent work on a regular basis. So if you can find that and it's not someone that's in-house, 100%. That's great. Go ahead and do it.
And treat them right, to your point, because there is a community. They talk amongst themselves, by the way. Yep. I came out of the film industry, kind of like you, Tolgar, in the sense that all the freelancers, and there's a lot of freelancers on a video shoot, at least back in the day there were, they all talked. The producers, the directors that were jerks that nobody wanted to work for, nobody did work for them, right? And so don't be that person. But I like where you're going, Tolgar, about the whole, keep it simple, simplifying your tech stack, because I know as a marketing organization, we've just been flooded with this AI stuff. And it's like, oh my God, what tools are out there? Are they even relevant, right? I know we've had some email conversations, you, me, John, and like Cordy. It's like, oh, I found this tool. Oh yeah, well, here's a list of 10 tools that we could use. And it's like, hold on, time
Until
out.
you eventually just find yourself using none of them because you're like, I don't know where to start. I'm just going to do what I always did.
Yeah, right? So there's brilliance in what you were saying there, Tolgar, right? In the sense that, hey, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Keep it simple. Be rock stars on the tools that you do use. Maybe spend a little bit of time. This is kind of, I think, where we've landed, right? We want to be experts on the tools that we're using as well, and then maybe pepper in one or two. But I don't know, this whole AI thing is really distorted kind of tool sets right now, and I know it'll mitigate and ebb and flow, but
I like what he was talking about with his team is like, hey, each of our teams is going to take whatever part is related to what they do, go out and do a little bit of work on it, figure out what does and doesn't work. It's not about like, oh yeah, it's time. Everybody just have to completely just shift all your operations over to this new AI tool. Like, no, we know that's not the smart move at this point. Like, there's too many intangibles and too many variables to figure out before we get there. Dabble in it, figure out where it fits, but you shouldn't be thinking about how am I going to just completely reinvent my entire marketing into this new world of technology and AI now and just ignore everything we've done before. Because no, what you've been doing was working for a reason. Figure out how to take the new stuff and fold it in somewhere. So, well, Tolgar, you mentioned a little bit about LinkedIn earlier, and I want to talk a little bit more about that because it's a pretty popular tool still, especially for B2B marketing. So I think probably in our world, I know we use it for a lot. I think for the most part, our VARs and ISVs are it's probably one of the most popular tools for them to market. Outside of maybe emails, it's probably one of the most popular ways to market to their potential customers as well. But what are your thoughts on it at this point? Because I know I personally can say that I'm finding sponsored posts are becoming less and less effective recently, unless you have a very, very specific message and a very specific audience, and you're able to really narrow down and target that audience, but also not quite get too narrow, because you go too narrow, you're not getting anywhere. So,
really? Yeah. Okay.
At least on the sponsored side of things. But I feel like more people are talking about the organic side. So, what's your opinion on that? Do you think is one better than the other? When should you be using either one? And are you still feeling like LinkedIn is the place to go for B2B marketing?
Sure. I would say that I joined our organization 2 years ago, and LinkedIn was the first channel that I worked to build immediately. And why is that, right? We know that Microsoft purchased them, wanted to increase user base. We thought that there was going to be a shift more to the company page approach, to your point, working on the sponsorship. And that was going to be kind of But what they've done is they said, no, we want to hold back on kind of monetizing that. We want to keep this organic and build the user base. Just 2 days ago, I believe there's a Forbes article where they sat with the two engineers that are working on the LinkedIn algorithm. And the new modification they've rolled out now is purely about thought leadership. It's about carving your niche and talking about who you are and providing value in a very specific guardrail kind of a road path, right? You don't want to disperse. So what does that mean for anyone? Well, it means if you've got a personal profile, you're probably going to get a much better reach. And why is that important for an organization? Well, evangelism, right? Through your own employees and customers. For us, we see much more exposure through that methodology than we do through the paid ads and sponsorship. To your point, the paid ads do play a role in some awareness building, but overall, we've really taken an organic approach. I mentioned earlier with our sales team, we do the cocktail party. You find some targets that you're looking to talk to, prospects, and hanging out where they're at, joining their conversations. If they're posting and asking questions, legitimately answering that, value adding, not just saying, hey, I saw you come up in my network, we should connect, and then immediately, pitch you or any of that. I think the challenge with social is that it's made people feel that they can speed up the process of trust and credibility. And that inherently cannot be sped up without the value and the substance. And that's where I think a lot of this falters is you may have a bad experience with a platform and say it doesn't work, but it's really not necessarily the platform. Did you really take the time to understand the dynamic of how that platform conducts and talks? And LinkedIn is definitely a different animal than Twitter or Facebook or any of these other channels in terms of who's on there and what they're talking about, generally speaking. Secondarily, as I mentioned, you can mine a lot more information through LinkedIn, and the organic side of building those connections and using that information in real time help you build, ins that you may not get through the paid. So again, it's a trust piece, right? So how do you build trust? That's the key thing. If we were, I always talk about it being the first date, but it's like someone usually doesn't pop the question if you want to get married right away while you're at dinner. I mean, realistically, though, if they did a video, if someone was walking down the street and was like, hey, Dean, I saw you on my newsfeed, we should connect, and I reach my hand out to you, you may be kind of like, what I mean? So I think
who are you?
What's
going on here? Yeah.
So I think we're kind of missing some of those kind of cues. And what that does is it shuts people down and they don't want to interact. So I think you have to do some due diligence of researching who you're talking to, what you want to do. And it goes beyond kind of what ads give in terms of that demographic, firmographic data. And so that's why sometimes I don't feel the paid and the sponsored is as effective as organic.
Yeah. I'm going to borrow from Neil Patel, who I think a lot of us know, kind of in the marketing space, but he's got a couple good takes. And I think it's very in line with what Tolgar was just saying, engage with people in your niche, right? I mean, when you think about organic versus non-organic, I think that it's clear, yes, authenticity comes through with organic, right? And so how do you do that? The thought leadership, obviously we're all bought in on that, trying to do even more along those lines, engaging with people in the niche. So it's interesting to hear you come right out of the gate saying, hey, no, it's all about the niche within LinkedIn, right? And developing your audience and the trust that you're developing there as well. To tie it back into the production, use video, right? Use and post video effectively. I think it's a very effective medium, especially, the younger you are on LinkedIn and your reactions thereof are good things too. But let's talk about this. Cross-promoting on other social platforms as a bullet point. I mean, do you LinkedIn, I think we all agree, is really strong in the B2B place. But do you go outside, Tolgar? Are you cross-linking to Facebook and Twitter and things of that nature to amplify things, or what's your take there?
I've been in organizations in the past where it was you write one post and push it out on all channels, right? And we know that that's ineffective. Again, it is a different tone and it is a different conversation in each location. And if you're not investing the time to build that community, then your information is just going to sit out there. So there's really no relevance, and you're kind of just doing a checkbox, as we talked about, kind of a tactical. So I started with LinkedIn, and then we looked into TikTok. And that's not necessarily a place that I would say our market plays in, per se, but it was a very effective tool for me to edit videos on the fly. Right. So they've got so if you're going to record video and you know that the polish will come later, but you're willing to get good audio and you've got a great tool here, you don't have to use Adobe Premiere or something more complicated to edit your videos. You can download it without the watermark, and then now you can push it out onto all your other channels. Right. But when you push that content out, the message that you put out there has to be different on each one. The way it's written and who you're talking to and the tone has to be different. And that's the key thing. I think that it's just a copy and paste methodology, and that's very ineffective. Secondarily, I do think that cross-posting has effectiveness if you can create a journey that, it is fun, where maybe you can bring them from one platform to another, and there's a real reason because maybe there's a feature within a particular platform set that you can activate. That's certainly something that we've done in the past. But overall, for me personally, because I don't control these channels, right? They modify the algorithm and suddenly my reach is waned and I can't get to the same people. So I'm always trying to work to move from channels to, non-paid, non-rented, like email and some of our forums and things that we're building. But for social specifically, I don't think that trying to be everywhere serves you. I just don't. I think if you understand how can I be relevant at the right time for the right person with the right information, you will be able to pinpoint 1 to 3 channels, I think, that are manageable. But even starting with just LinkedIn, where we just focused on it for 7 to 8 months, just alone on that, was impactful. Then we could take our learnings from that and move that on to the next channel. I think, the plate spinning analogy I said before, if you're trying to do it all once and your measurement is incorrect, your information that you're getting may not be direct. And so now you're making some bad assumptions and you may write all the channels off.
Yeah, compounding the issue. Right.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff right there. Yeah.
I agree. That's exactly like what really stood out to me there is when you were like, hey, pick a platform, pick a lane, and do really, really well with that before you go dabbling with everything else. I'm not saying you can't have a presence everywhere, but yeah, if you're trying to divide up equally the same amount of time on every single one of these platforms, it's going to end up lacking at the end. Yeah, it's all
for sure.
And to your point, you might fall prey to wanting to take that shortcut of, all right, I just don't have it in me to do an Instagram post that's different today, so I'm just gonna grab a separate
Copy,
picture
paste,
and throw it over there in the same text and whatever.
No.
But yeah, because again, especially if granted, I would assume that for the most part, the people you're trying to reach are probably only following you on one of those various platforms. But if they're not, or if, especially again, if you have some kind of a, sponsored post or something that gets kind of pushed via algorithm to you on a different platform, we all know how that is. I will see stuff on platforms that have absolutely nothing to do with my job that still have to do with, IPCMobile will pop up, or something BlueStar or something somewhere else in our industry, or the RSPA or something like that, even though it's, something of my personal life, just because that stuff gets tied into what I'm doing on the internet, for work. Yeah. So yeah, you don't want to be in that situation where someone who's following you somewhere sees the exact same message somewhere else, because it's
different
immediately going to
platforms,
start
different voice.
diluting it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
for
I
sure.
like that. I think it's a
Good
very
stuff.
important thought there to find a place to start, and that probably is more often than not going to be LinkedIn. But if it's not, if you feel like you can reach more people on Facebook, fine, start there, build it up, give it good strength, and then once you've got that, expand out from there. So I know I'm just reiterating exactly what Tolgar said.
But you had to take early on that you think paid or sponsored is becoming a little less effective.
I kind of do.
Let's riff on that a little bit. So
I'll give that a caveat, because we're doing a little bit of different stuff than we used to. I'm thinking about from my perspective and some of the things I've done with like content marketing and with like lead gen type marketing. I think a lot of where it is I think we've reached this point where maybe folks are just a little less inclined to give information in order to access content.
I gotcha.
Because there's so much of it out
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, it's a little bit more of an uphill road to climb than it used to be. Now, I think if you're out there doing some sponsored posts where you're just, hey, click this, and it's a one click, takes them to everything they need, and maybe there's an opportunity there where you capture a lead, but you're not expecting that. I think there's a lot more to get out of that right now, and we're doing a little bit more with that of the organic, so not organic, but like the demand gen type social, where it's like, hey, we just want to get as many eyes on this as possible and get them knowing who this is and what this product might be or whatever. for.
With a little engagement behind
right, without
it, right?
expecting, hey, give me your name, address,
Yeah,
phone number,
gotcha.
email address.
Yeah. With the
your
hard sell
place of
CTA.
business.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Just so you can
Social
take a
security
peek at
number.
this
Yeah,
thing that
right,
you don't
right,
even
right.
know.
Yeah, I got you.
And granted, I got to figure out better ways to get better at that too. And to that point, I've just learned, hey, LinkedIn's probably not the place I start doing that. There are other places where I still find that extremely effective, but LinkedIn may not necessarily be anymore.
I got
So it
you.
might be if that's what you're still doing, if you're relying solely on sponsored posts, and if it's, I'm using this in order to collect information to create a lead of some sort, you might want to rethink those efforts or decrease what that gate is down to the most minimal information as possible.
Yeah,
So
I got you.
that's my thoughts on it, at least. So
I just want to piggyback
Yeah.
on John's point, which is, with paid, the beauty of it is it's giving you access to specific targets within your criteria, right? So what can you deliver is the key thing, right? It shouldn't be a billboard. It shouldn't be an ad. It should be micro edutainment, right? 15 to 30 seconds of deliverable information, but I can get it to the right people. I know that it's not just floating in my news feed now. So that's really where we've found success, is identifying those individuals who don't have the time to read a white paper, who aren't going to go to the YouTube channel and go through our catalog of videos. But while they're flipping through their news feed, if 15 to 30 seconds of information comes, and then it comes 5 or 6 times in their path of 3 months, then we see them likely coming to us and looking for more information on the website or some of these other repositories.
Brilliant.
there you go.
That's it.
Well, let's wrap this up with, I feel like this conversation, this question I'm about to ask, is something we've already kind of touched on in several different ways throughout this conversation. But, all these marketing tools, all this technology, it's all great, but it's not meant to be a replacement, obviously, for good service, good products, good people, good relationships. That stuff's got to be there first before marketing will even do anything for you. So when people are talking about, hey, I want to start bringing in tools like AI, I want to bring more automation, I want to use paid social, I want to go find these cool tools for marketing and start implementing them. Is there any point where maybe that becomes kind of negative? Again, I know we've kind of touched on that. We just talked about the paid social aspect where it may not be doing quite what you want to get out of it. So, where do you think that maybe you need to step back a little bit and not get super invested in these tools as a way to deliver all of your marketing?
Sure. If I can just preface it with a quick little backstory. So before I was involved with film, I was also on the weekends, as I was going through my college education, nightclub DJ, and I was playing. And I was
Dude,
playing.
what haven't you done at this point?
I get that a lot. So, but here's the relevance in that, right? When I started, it was vinyl, and when you're DJing, you're matching the speed of the 2 songs playing so that they're at the same tempo, and then I'm going to EQ them so one fades out, another one comes in, and it's a seamless transition. Couple years later, CD comes out, and they create a device that now beat matches for you. So you don't even have to beat match anymore. And the older DJ community is up in arms saying this technology is taking away the creativity. This is, and then it goes to MP3s, and then now it's over air, right? So as the technology has gotten easier and it's automated, what it's done is it invited a lot more people to come and participate. But the level of the baseline of mediocrity, right, in terms of just kind of using the tool just for its baseline intention, increases. And so now you're in a pool of generalists, right? So how do you differentiate yourself? And that's kind of what we're seeing with AI. Gartner's AI hype cycle, we're in the hype cycle right now, and everyone's all about generative AI. And it's overwhelming because there's so many companies, so many tools. Again, you have to simplify to what you want to achieve and how you want to get the message out. So there isn't a particular tool or a particular technology piece that I would say you should look at. I would say, what are some processes today that you have that you think by automating could help you become more creative somewhere else, or invest more time into something else around a campaign, or whatever it is that you feel is the missing piece? And so with our generative AI team, while we were looking at all these great ideas, we just said, hey, look, let's come up with a little cartoon, an animated cartoon. So we have, text to video, text to audio, we have script generators. We're doing all of these things just to create a little test bed of 15 seconds. Can we create a little ad, right? And so in that, we discover the different tools, but we're not inherently looking for a particular tool. We're coming with a problem that we need to solve, by taking one of these tools and seeing. And again, all of these tools do the same thing. It's like a diet. You just got to find the one that you like personally. You like the interface. Is it easy to use? And so that's the real thing that I always look at with the technology, is that while there are a lot of things and we can kind of go features and benefits, it's really a blue ocean they're all playing in. And so you may have a couple of red ocean differentiators where a particular tech stack is the one to go. But again, we just talked about ABM software, about all these platforms. They were the hot buzz just 2-3 years ago. And now we have the attribution mirage that has come alive, right? That's really a key thing. So again, I would say simplify what you want to do, understand your objectives, figure out the resource, but most importantly, carve time to dedicate to this. I think that's the real thing. There is a nuance to anything. When you see someone do something that looks effortless, it's because they've practiced it so much with so much repetition. And the same thing has to happen with marketing. You start building kind of this muscle where you know what will work and what won't work inherently. You have to become a pilot who can land a plane without navigational equipment at some point, right? I mean, that's really it, because you got all these switches and you're like, oh no. So can I first fly the plane by itself, and then let me add an exoskeleton arm here of this tool or that tool, and so that's kind of been our approach, is deductively figuring out what doesn't work, fail fast, fail forward quickly, and then trying to ascertain what we're doing. But again, using that guideline of the initial objective, always never wavering from that, because to your point, it's a rabbit hole. I mean, you'll get to a point where you will talk yourself out of doing any of it.
Or worse, and this is what I was going to contribute, or the path I was going to go down, and I'm going to use your baseline of mediocrity, right? Like, we've got these tool sets now, and so everybody can be a marketer, which we've already established. Everybody is a marketer, and now they can do baseline marketing, but, how do we as marketers rise above that? Well, one of the negatives I think that comes out of a lot of this stuff is wasting time, money, and resources on, very generic marketing, I would say, right? That's going to get very generic results. I mean, we talk all the time, to customers. Well, look, if you want us to go out and market point of sale and retail, sure, we could find people that are going to react to that,
right?
But this is so top
you
of
and
funnel,
60 other companies,
exactly, and you're competing tremendously for that. We got to narrow this down, right? And that's where the skill set comes in, of getting very specific, right? That's where you're going, Tolgar, is using your knowledge and your abilities and your team's abilities to get very specific in that demand gen that you're trying to build. That's one of the negative parts about all these nice tool sets is, okay, everybody's at the baseline's higher, but that doesn't mean that the baseline is getting you what you need out of marketing. Right.
And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the internet wasn't invented yesterday. Social media has kind of been around for about
almost 3 decades.
People are pretty tech savvy these days. People have been getting emails for decades now. I mean, I just think the average consumer, whether it's a business level or a personal level, we're pretty tech savvy about what is and isn't clearly like pounding you over the head kind of marketing. Like we know what we see when it's out there. I mean, you already hear people talking about the AI stuff. Like they know what they see when it comes out. They're like, oh yeah, that clearly is an AI image. It's somebody whipped up in Midjourney or something like that. Oh, that text clearly looks like it was thrown together by, some kind of an AI program or something. Like people are already savvy to this stuff. Like you can't go out there with generic stuff and think you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes when you're just doing the paint by numbers.
Again, that baseline is just good enough, right? I got marketing out there. Right? It still takes a bit of nuance.
Exactly.
Along there. That's interesting. And getting back to your point, one other final thing, the real timeness, right, of your marketing. I think people can get caught up in tool sets and then they forget about the fact that you need to be reactive. So Tolgar, it's great to hear you say, fail fast, fail forward. That's what marketing is all about right now in today's day and age. Like, we're not using the right tactic. Well, quit spending money over there. It's not getting the results you want. You got to. I mean, we pivot within days. Am I correct? It's that fast where you can kind of tell, is this doing what we thought it would be? Okay, we need to modify something here. So that's very much in the culture, I think, of healthy marketing today,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Tolgar, what were you going to add?
I was just going to say that when we think of ChatGPT, right, the GPT is generative pre-training transformer, right? Long story short, one large data set, everybody has access to the same data. So how would you expect to pull something unique out of that, right? And in 2008, when the recession occurred and I was working in manufacturing, right, suddenly when I needed to increase capacity or production, it wasn't you could add another line. You had to use what you already had and take the technologies and integrate them and now find new data, new information out of all of these machines working together to come out with new insights using what you have. And same thing with ChatGPT is this concept of prompt engineering. The specificity of the questions you ask, but intermixing with your organizational data will be the key differentiator. And that's the key thing I think is not being taken. To your point, it is the baseline. Let's just hop in there. Let's ask a question. Here it is. Populate it.
Yeah,
copy,
exactly.
paste,
Move on. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying you have to take some time and nuance. Again, your organization, if it is a person, how does that person talk? Does that person talk the same way consistently? You know, and is it a very generic, general conversation like that? You know, how do you get to that next layer if you do need to get there? And so that's the key thing that I think all organizations that look at these tools is how do we inject some of our information in there? How do we not only use this tool set, but integrate it with what we have to give that differentiation?
All right. Hey, this has been a great conversation.
Yes.
Before we wrap things up here, I want to quickly do the stuff we usually do at this point, which is thank our sponsors. We appreciate your support of the show. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
If you're watching YouTube.
Yes.
Like
Do those
button,
fun things.
Subscribe to the channel. Leave us comments. Leave us reviews. We want all that stuff.
Or say you want to be on the show like Tolgar.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to be on the show,
Raise your
out.
hand. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always happy to bring folks on here. Sure.
100%.
And I'll even say that for the VAR community, you know, the VAR and ISV community. We'd love to hear from you. Love to have some of you on the show, so don't hesitate to reach out. Of course, if you have ideas for the show, send those in. Always a link in the show notes where you can submit an idea. You get a free t-shirt just for doing it. If you ever want to reach out and connect with us directly, you can always find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod or email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up first of all with our value to the VAR.
Yes.
You know, it's our way of giving a nice takeaway. You know, what can you do with what we've taught you today?
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask you to try to distill this down, Tolgar. We had lots of good stuff we talked about today, but if you were gonna give
take an hour's worth of content and boil it all down.
If you're gonna do that and give a one solid takeaway to VARs or ISVs, something they can do in the next few weeks to really improve and take their marketing to the next level, what would you recommend?
I would say, again, hit the pause button for a moment. You know, you may be kind of caught in a cycle. Take a moment to just really assess where you're at, simplify, figure out what you're absolutely currently using and what you can maximize, and then figure out where your gaps are before you kind of just jump in because of a feature set of a new tool. Try to, you know, bring clarity to your direction and what you're doing, both to the market outside, but also internally in your execution.
Good stuff. Yep. I'm going to add in there, add this to the form. How did you hear about us? Right.
Yeah.
That's like one thing that we did it a little while ago. Great to hear that you just did it like 6 months ago. If you can't believe the analytics, which apparently we can't believe all of them, you know, get it directly from the source. How did you hear about us? That'll help you with attribution. And once you know attribution, you got a better tool in your shed to go after, you know, more of that.
There you go.
Kind of a thing.
All right, I know I said one, but I got two quick short ones here to add. So first of all, if you are using some kind of marketing tool right now, whether it's a CRM, something like a HubSpot or whatever kind of marketing stuff you're using, reach out to your rep for that and schedule a conversation with them.
Oh, right.
Just to have
you just did that.
I did. I talked to our HubSpot rep this morning just to have a conversation about like what's new, what's
going
different,
on, what's shaking.
Because I know a lot of these tools, they'll send out updates. They may have a blog and they may have some little notifications that tell you,
or
like,
they
here's
assign
what's
you
new.
a success manager and you don't even think about them. Oh, yeah, whatever.
You never know when you're going to talk to this person and find out there's things you could be doing to elevate your marketing game that are either already built in or been added in at no extra charge, or maybe something that for a small extra fee you can flip on and take your game to the next level. It doesn't hurt to have those conversations.
That's a good one.
Tell them what you're doing and how maybe they can help you get there. And then the other one is talk to your customers too. I mean, I know that seems kind of a no-brainer, but have conversations with your actual customers about, one, to your point, I mean, you know, the form thing obviously is great, but if you don't get that or some way, the next time you are out there talking with someone, ask them at some point, hey, how did you hear about us? If you don't know already, how did you find out about us, by the way? Or even
especially
just have some,
a new prospect.
Or just have some questions about them of like, hey, you know, when you're deciding on technology or you're looking at, you know, updating something in your facility or whatever, where do you go to start that process? What do you do to figure out exactly what you're going to look for. If you know you need a new point of sale, if you know you need a new mobile computer, where do you go to start that? And you might be surprised by the answers you get that could lead you to some better ideas of where to direct your marketing efforts.
That's a really good one. We're blessed in that we do a lot of events so we can interact with our customers.
There you go.
But I love doing that.
And hopefully, if you got a customer that's willing to tell you that stuff, just spend a lot of time with them. Keep asking. Go back to that.
Buy another drink.
Yeah, exactly. Empty that bourbon bottle.
There it is. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up with our favorite segment, What's TEConnecting with You? This is where we get to talk about something in the world of science, technology, innovation, or just whatever we feel like chatting about today. So, Tolgar, we'll start with you. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
So I recently saw a Google I/O presentation, and Dean, you may find this interesting coming from the film space. There is a tool that they've integrated called Imagen and Phenaki, which can give you line by line text to video, but you can specify same way in a film script, medium shot with whatever the exterior is, pan here, and you can write your entire script and it will create the entire movie flow.
No.
From shot to shot to shot. Yes, it's very new, but they did an example where it was said a balloon is flying by a giraffe with this view, and then it goes through this window, and then it just is a sequence that they just wrote out the entire script and it delivered it in video format. I was incredibly excited.
That's crazy. Gone are the old what do they call those? The sheets. Anyway. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Gone are those. That's pretty cool. I got to see that. What did you call it again? Where were the two apps?
It's Imagen is Imagen, and then Phenaki, Phenaki. And they integrated these two together, which are both text to video, and could create an entire sequence.
Gone are storyboards is what I was thinking of.
Gone
are the storyboards for crying out loud.
Storyboards.
Storyboard artists are now up in arms.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they are.
Oh man!
All right, Dean, what's TEConnecting?
Well, I'm going to keep going down the old AI one, but here's the headline that made me. It's like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. Lawyer apologizes for botched ChatGPT generated legal brief. All right. So a New York lawyer is now facing a court hearing of his own after his firm used the AI tool for legal research. A judge said that this is unprecedented circumstance. The lawyer who used the tool told the court that he was unaware that the content that ChatGPT created was actually false, right? And so getting back to the whole thing about, the tool sets you use, got to realize, you got to read what it's producing. Well, this is one of those examples where ChatGPT just made stuff up, just flat out made it up. The original case involved a man suing an airline over an alleged personal industry. So the airline's lawyers wrote, a research on it, submitted it to the judge, but that one had this research that they submitted, 6 of the submitted cases appeared to be completely bogus. They didn't even exist.
They're like from Legally Blonde or something.
Yeah, exactly. But as if that wasn't bad enough, the lawyer, his name's Mr. Schwartz, who for the law firm there, said that, okay, well, I challenged GPT. So when GPT gave me this information, I said, in essence, are you sure that this is correct? And so he's got screenshots of this dialogue with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said yes. And he's questioning, is this Vargas case real? And ChatGPT says yes. In fact, not only is it yes, but you can reference the database in LexisNexis and Westlaw, so it knows where the reference, even though it made it up. So it's like, oh man,
I'm
it's
curious how that guy's going to do in his next bar review.
Well, we've already heard that, but now lawyers are getting themselves in trouble. So as I claimed early, what does everybody think about AI? Well, it doesn't really matter. Just let the lawyers get involved, and once they get it all figured out, then we can figure out what we, the common people,
meanwhile, the lawyers
use.
are trying to take the shortcuts too. So. Oh, of course.
So watch out for ChatGPT. It makes stuff up, right? We know that. It just makes shit up.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. What's TEConnecting with you?
ChatConnecting?
Yeah, ChatConnecting with you.
That'll be the next iteration.
Yeah, really.
I don't know. ChatGPT told me what's TEConnecting with me today. Well, okay. I actually had something different, and I pivoted while we were having our conversation because we were talking about the idea of AI and not believing what you see and the genericness potentially of it. Well, I don't know if you heard about this debacle, but as we're recording this, last week, Marvel's latest TV series, Secret Invasion, debuted on Disney+.
Okay.
Don't need to bother with explaining what that is, but what apparently caused a bit of a furor about it is that the opening credit sequence to the show was apparently created using AI. Instead of the usual having a studio and a production studio, whatever,
artist,
a special effects studio, whatever, develop the opening credits, which I don't know if you noticed, but like over the years, like, opening credits for TV shows have become a big deal. There's a lot of, it's not just in the old days where you just threw up a logo or had some catchy theme song and scenes from the show with all the characters. Like, it's they make productions out of them. They give awards to these things now. Well, apparently someone decided to take some shortcuts and just develop an AI version. And mind you, it looks very much like what the early days of Midjourney were, where nothing quite looks as it seems. So, for example, the main character is Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
So there's a couple shots in the credits that show Samuel Jackson's face.
Yes.
And it just doesn't really look like
him.
It's kind of distorted and weird. And now there's all kinds of talk.
To have known this.
Well, there's all kinds of talk going on around this because apparently at this point, at least the last I've heard, no one's officially stepped forward from the studio or the company that did these to explain like if there's a reason behind this or why they chose this or whatever, especially at a time where there's all these different, people in the Hollywood industry going on strike because of what's happening in the streaming world and the emphasis on getting more for less and more out of fewer people. Well, there's been a lot of talk about this, about the idea that, okay, so, what was the impetus behind this? Why are we doing this? Some people are making their own suggestions of like, well, this is a series all about subterfuge and it's kind of a spy series and it's all about this race of alien beings who can shapeshift into other people. And maybe they were trying to make it off-putting so that it kind of gels that. I'm like, I get what you're saying, but I have a feeling that wasn't necessarily the thought process that was put into this, especially when no one rushed to come out and give that as the explanation. If the moment someone said that, someone from the studio stepped up and said, aha, that the fact that you're uncomfortable with that is exactly what you wanted to feel because it represents the uncomfort that people feel in the show, not knowing who's real and who's a scroll or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I just found it's a fascinating narrative. I'm curious if anyone's going to say anything else about it. I'm also very curious because I think the new episode drops today as we're recording this.
See if it has that AI opening.
Yeah, I'm curious if they might change that up or something, and switch over and be like, sorry about that. We're doing something different this time.
Or maybe it's Tolgar's, a little whiz bang visual creator.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That probably could have done something better than this thing looks. So. That's what's TEConnecting with us. Tolgar, Alpagut, thank you so much. IPCMobile, we appreciate you joining us today. I love having you on the show. Hey, until next time, folks, we do have to unplug, but, go make some movies. Just, type up some movies. I mean, I can do that. I can't shoot a movie. I could write a movie.
Write it all day long.
There we go. That's it. The script writers now, we're just going to write the movies and generate themselves. We don't need the directors.
We don't need Marco, the Marcos of the world.
Exactly. And hey, maybe next time you're in court, make sure your lawyer, actually knows how to look up a law book and not type some stuff into ChatGPT.
That would help.
And as always, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Zebra.
Ow!
The day-to-day use of enterprise mobile devices is integral to distribution, warehousing, manufacturing, retail, and more. But relying on employees to locate, properly maintain, and return those devices can be a bit of a struggle that costs your customers time and money. Doesn't like people just losing your crap all over the place.
Hey, here's this
ridiculously expensive product that I got to make you more productive. Thanks for dropping it to the side of a workbench somewhere.
Over there by the dust machine, or whatever.
Exactly. Thanks for leaving it on the lunchroom table.
Yeah, exactly.
Setting it on top of the vending machine when you got a Coke out, Zebra Intelligent Cabinets are rugged and durable storage solutions in multiple configurations and security options.
Nice.
Designed to charge, maintain, and keep mobile devices cool and accessible. Like, not cool as in like cool, but like, temperature.
Oh, yeah.
Intelligent cabinets, I'm sure there's not a soul that didn't know what I was talking about. That just, I wanted an excuse to do that.
Yeah.
There's some cool mobile computers. Intelligent cabinets mean no more time wasted tracking down devices at the start of a shift, waiting for a recharge, or making surprise repairs or replacements. Monitoring options provide real-time visibility into device status, charge levels, and devices in use. So help your customers guard their asset investments and maximize the life of their mobile devices with Zebra Intelligent Cabinets. Check out the link in the show notes or contact your Zebra representative to learn more. The TEConnect podcast is also brought to you by ELO and their 70 series full HD professional grade touch monitors.
Nice.
The 70 series delivers professional grade, feature rich platforms well suited for POS, interactive digital signage, self-service, document signing, and more.
I got a question here. Are they modular at all?
I mean, it's ELO. Of course they're modular.
There you go. Yeah.
So let's talk about some features though.
Ooh, features, yes.
Narrow border touchscreen.
Nice.
Energy Star 8.0 certified.
Gotta have.
Scratch resistant surface.
Ooh.
You know, in case you like to throw something at it.
That's gonna happen? That's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. People just scratch stuff up all the time. I mean, have you seen what people do to their phones? You think they're going to be kind and gentle to some random touchscreen?
No, you need some scratch protection right there, bro.
Durable IK07 design, low blue light and flicker free, touch on-screen display tilt from 20 to 70 degrees, built-in speakers, and a collapsible stand for Visa mounting.
Boom.
That's lots of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
Available in 22, 24, and now 27-inch sizes in black or white housings. The 70 series delivers a quality and reliability you expect from ELO, backed with a standard 3-year warranty, extendable to 5 years with optimal advanced unit replacement. So when all those idiots are out there,
Yeah, exactly.
somehow figuring out a way to scratch it up and destroy it or something,
Years down the road.
you can, safely and easily replace it for your
100%.
customers.
There you go.
Check out the link in the show notes to learn more about these new monitors.